Litico was a leader of other tribe located in the modern-day Ontario, Canada, on the Great Lakes region. He led the rebellion against the British colonists after they expanded their military presence in the Great Lakes during the French and in the Indian War. The politic uprising that demolished the valuable trade centers and the corporation of the struggle against European American territorial expansion, now contributing to the domestic violence of America and the European powers. American colonies. In the Seven War, also called the French Indian War, which broke out in 1754 and lasted till 1763, and was an imperial war between Britain and France, taking over the country of Ohio. The French and British rushed to the region of the forts established by the military presence in order of the solar fire. They contributed in the young George Washington, which was only 21 years old, and the colonists claimed on the area. He was sent behalf the Virginia colony to build the fork of the Ohio River, modern-day Petersburg. I believe that's in America. The skirmish led to outright declarations of hostility. So basically war with the Native Americans and the British colonizers. The war had permitted the British colonies and their Native American allies against the French colonists and their American allies. Tough, the French gained advantage in the early days of the war. British, unfortunately, trumped the Treaty of Paris, signed in 1763, when French surrendered and nearly claimed the North American territory. The Native American tribes of the region nobly that to France the authority of the lands to British. Moreover, the several years of war and heights of tension between the British and North American colonies. Once the French was removed from the regime, valuers of the other roses, including a dismantle of the other out west expansion, taxpaying, and religious beliefs of the native tribes. Pola's uprising. At the end of the French and Indian War, France abandoned the outpost of force in Detroit, in what's called present day known as Michigan. The British took the port of Detroit and imposed a number of changes and distrust to the Native American tribes that were inhabited the Great Lakes region that had allied with the French. An instant where an area where the French had suspected and respected the Native American tribe members had traded freely with the tribe. The British did not seem to care about the maintenance and good relations with the Native Americans. They restricted the ability to trade. The Native Americans had grown assumption hunting with weapons, ammunition, and supplied by the French. But the British, out of the control area, they refused to give arms to the Native Americans. They knew the negative effect would ability to hunt and the British latitude and the resources that would be poured into the next war. In May 1763, Portuguese, a leader of the Al-Qaeda tribe, led 300 members on different tribes to attack the fort of Detroit, attempt to wrestle it. But the British commander has learned the plan. However, successfully defending against a siege, the British managed to hold the fort of Detroit, and the siege was labeled. The residents of the spread and could politic and tripped his forces. Moreover, other Native American tribes launched attacks on the British settlements and the military outposts, managed to capture 11 British forts of the Ohio Valley. On July 25th, 1766, the Portuguese and the British have Indian affairs, kicked the British out of the Great Lakes, uprising domestically, and the colonialists and the British government issued a royal impartment of 1763, drawing a boundary, a line of the mountains and forbid the colonialists of setting land west, which was designed for the Indian Territory. The British hoped to neutralize the conflict with the settlers and the Native Americans, but then it ended in brutal battles and what it would be known as Bleeding Kansas. What do you think? Let me know. Comments below. Next one. Conflict between the French and English over territory led the known of the 7-Year War. The 7-year-old has solidified as the British stand of dominating European countries in the world. However, Britain attempted to increase the control of the American colonies, began rebelling, even with the Revolution War. The core historian's theme. That will be later. Key terms. 7-Year War. The definition. Sometimes called as the French-Indonesian War, but it was a conflict between French and Britain, which in the alliance of the settlers of the Ohio and the British of the colonies had done no plan of union. A plan has been created by Benjamin Franklin to organize an international government, including a system to collect taxes and recruit troops. The treaty ending the 7-Year War, French had to induce much of the Northern Territory to the British and forced 300 members of Native American tribes to leave and stop the British encroaching on their territory and armed rebellions. The lawful had passed for the British Parliament and the colonialists west of the Appalachian Mountains. North America, before the 7-Year-Old War, British only controlled the east side and Canada, and the British now nearly controls everything. The core historian's theme. The competition between the European powers after tobacco's price started remaining stagnant. The owner of the Virginia-class wanted to move west into the Ohio River, produce more tobacco, and hopefully drive prices of crops higher. However, top Britain, France have claimed ownership to the lands of Ohio, and the conflict between them to lead to the start of the 7-Year-Old War. Cooperation with the natives. Both the French and the British occupied with the natives used the force of 7-Year-Old War. The French allied with the Hungary, and were the British allied with the Alcarro. These alliances caused trade, sliding, and the Native Americans, who were colonialists, interest moving westward. Migrates after the war. When the 7-Year-Old War ended, the British won France's land holding in the colonialist era. French had expanded its borders and lost all its money, troops, and gear. They have been pushed back, and the British have took all of their land. In 1763, the protesters of the demanding movement of West Alps and the Alps River, upsetting many colonialists who wanted to land increase their wealth. Thousands of colonialists defied the law, moving and claimed the land for themselves. Review questions. What are some things that British monarchy had used to disobey the British laws? How did the British status change the world power in the 7-Year War? And what are the three ways of the 7-Year-Old War, of the political and economy relationship between the British, American, and colonialists? Let me know. Comments below. The conflict between the French and the territory has been brutal. 50,000 troops are dead. A lot of civilians are starved because of the British blockade. Now, when the British is in control, they can do whatever they want. But the British ran out of money, fighting a 7-Year-Old War, and the next chapter of taxing its colonies. Bye!